Viscount's Vow. Chapter 1. The Promise That Haunts. The hall of Ashford Manor was unnervingly quiet, a silence so absolute it felt sacrilegious. Outside the tall windows, a rainstorm scoured the countryside, rattling against the panes as if to demand entry. Yet within Lord Ashford's chamber, time seemed suspended, its very heartbeat stilled by anticipation and dread. Viscount Ravensby stood motionless beside the four-poster bed, a tall figure carved from shadow and gilt. His clothes were damp from the storm, his hair uncharacteristically dishevelled, and his jaw set hard enough to ache. Yet he barely noticed any of it. His entire world had collapsed into the narrow space of the dying man before him. Henry Moore, dearest friend, brother in everything but blood, was slipping away. The once robust officer, who had laughed through battlefield terror and mocked danger to its face, now lay pale as winter linen. His breaths came shallow, ragged, as though each one dragged him further from the world. Only hours earlier, Lucian had ridden from London in a desperate attempt to reach him. He had prayed, an act he rarely indulged in, that Henry might hold on long enough to hear the words he had never said. "I am sorry I should have been there. I should have pulled you out." But fate had other plans. Henry's voice cracked as he forced Lucian's hand into his weakening grasp. "There is something I must ask." Each word scraped like broken porcelain. Lucien leaned closer, despair tightening around him like a vice. "Anything. You have only to speak it." A faint, ghost-like smile flickered. "You always were too quick with promises." Henry swallowed, the effort monumental. "It is Isabel." The name sliced through Lucien's composure. Henry continued, oblivious to Lucian's internal jolt. "She is alone, Lucian. No father, no mother. And now—" His breath shuddered. "Promise me that you will look after her, protect her. Be the steady hand she has never had. She will listen to you. She trusts you." Lucien's heartbeat faltered. He had known Isabel Moore since she was 15, headstrong, fearless, tempestuous, and bright enough to blind a man. He had also known, with equal certainty, that he could never allow himself to feel anything for her beyond what propriety permitted. He had locked away every foolish stirring she once ignited in him, buried them deep beneath a cynic's armour. Duty, he had told himself. Responsibility, restraint. These were the pillars of a Ravensby. Yet now Henry's life hung on Lucian's response. "I cannot." The words came raw. "Henry, I am not the man." "Promise me," Henry whispered, eyes suddenly fierce through the haze of death. "On my soul, Lucian, promise." Guilt, grief, and helpless love for his friend shattered Lucien's resistance. "I swear it," he said hoarsely. "I will watch over her. Whatever she needs, she shall never be alone." Henry's expression eased, as though a great weight had been lifted. His lips curved faintly. "Good. She deserves happiness." His clouded eyes sought Lucien's. "And you deserve peace." Moments later, Henry Moore exhaled one last fragile breath. The chamber dimmed, the storm quieted, and Lucien Ravensby felt the vow clamp around his neck like a chain made of iron and regret. 3 weeks later, Isabel Moore strode into the drawing room of Blackwood House in London with the determined energy of a storm contained within a slender, graceful figure. Her deep brown hair was braided simply, her gown practical and unadorned. The vibrant light in her eyes, green as spring leaves, was undiminished by grief, though a faint shadow lingered, betraying sleepless nights. She found Viscount Ravensby waiting for her. Lucian stood near the mantel, tall, composed, but with a gravity that hadn't been present before Henry's passing. He wore mourning black, every line of his posture severe. Isabel paused, breath catching. She had always thought him formidable, broad-shouldered, elegant, expression carved into restraint. Yet now something in him seemed different, worn, perhaps, uncertain, vulnerable in a way she could not quite name. He bowed slightly. "Miss Moore." "Lord Ravensby," she returned softly. The sight of him tugged at the bruise of grief in her chest. He had been Henry's closest friend. She knew the loss cut him deeply too. "You summoned me," she said, crossing the room. "Your note sounded urgent." Lucian's jaw flexed. "We must speak of arrangements, your future." "My future is my own," she replied, chin lifting. "Isabel." The use of her name sent a confusing tremor through her, but she steeled herself. "I will manage," she said. "I am not helpless. I intend to return to our cottage in Kent. Henry and I always meant—" "You will not," Lucienne interrupted, the finality in his voice echoing like a decree. Her brows snapped together. "I beg your pardon." Lucienne struggled for composure. "It is unsafe. You would be isolated, without funds, without staff, without—" "I am not porcelain," she snapped. "I am perfectly capable of living independently." A muscle jumped in his cheek. "Your brother asked me to take responsibility for your welfare." She stilled. "Responsibility," she repeated slowly. Lucienne misread the shadow crossing her face as grief. "I will act in accordance with his wishes. You are to remain under my guardianship until a suitable arrangement can be made." Isabel's heart thudded, cold and cruel. Guardianship. The word tasted like ash. "Isabel—" "So that is it," she whispered. "Henry made you promise to look after me, and now you feel obligated to execute your sacred duty." Lucian flinched. "You misunderstand." "Do I?" Her laugh was brittle. "All these visits, all this concern, these sudden dictates about my life, they stem entirely from duty, not affection." A flush climbed his throat. "This is not about duty alone." "Is it not? Tell me, my lord, would you have cared what became of me had Henry not extracted that promise with his final breath?" Silence. Pain flickered across Lucienne's expression, raw, unguarded, and she felt her heart fracture because she recognized it. The truth. He would never have come, not like this, had he not been bound by guilt and that vow. "Forgive me," Isabel said stiffly, "but I cannot bear to be an obligation to anyone, least of all you." And before he could form a single word of protest, she left him standing alone with his vow echoing between them like the toll of a funeral bell. Chapter 2. The Heart That Will Not Be Silenced. Isabel Moore had no intention of remaining in London a moment longer than necessary. Her suitcase was half packed, her bonnet set out beside it, when her aunt, Mrs. Warren, a fluttery woman with nervous hands and a deep devotion to propriety, burst into the room, gasping as though she had climbed a hill. "You cannot possibly leave," she wailed. "Not after all the Viscount has arranged." "Arranged?" Isabel muttered grimly. "He arranged my captivity, nothing more." "Isabel, Lord Ravensby means well." "He means to honour a vow he never wanted to make," Isabel said, voice tight. "I refuse to let his life be dictated by obligation, and I refuse to let mine be controlled by it." "But he has invited guests for supper, and sent messages to half the ton. Why, Lady Everley herself accepted only because he promised you would attend." Isabel sank onto the edge of her bed, frustration pulsing through her. "Is this how he intends to manage me, by parading me like some wounded bird before society?" Mrs. Warren wrung her hands. "My dear, I believe his intention is rather different. He seems very invested." "Yes," Isabel said flatly, "invested in fulfilling his duty." Her aunt hesitated. "Perhaps, but duty does not make a man look at a woman the way he looks at you." Isabel froze. A trembling, foolish spark lit inside her chest. She crushed it instantly. "No," she said quietly. "I will not let myself dream a fantasy built on a lie." Mrs. Warren sighed helplessly. "At least attend supper. If you wish to leave afterwards, we shall make arrangements." Isabel wanted to refuse. Utterly, completely. But she also knew that fleeing without a word would wound Lucien unnecessarily, and she was not heartless. "Very well," she conceded. "One supper." The Ravensby townhouse glowed with candlelight that evening, the rooms warm with conversation. Isabel entered on her aunt's arm, her gown a soft blue that made her eyes shine. She felt every pair of eyes turn toward her, but it was Lucien's gaze that arrested her breath. He stood across the room speaking to an elderly baron, yet his eyes found her immediately. Something in his expression, quiet awe, quiet longing, struck her with the force of truth. He felt something, not duty, not obligation, something deeper, more dangerous. Her heart faltered. Lucien excused himself and approached with measured steps. His bow was impeccably formal, but his voice was nearly unsteady. "Miss Moore." "Lord Ravensby, you came." "Merely to humour my aunt." A faint smile ghosted his lips. "Then I am deeply in your aunt's debt." She looked away, overwhelmed. He offered his arm. "May I escort you to supper?" She hesitated, but took it. The supper was a blur of polite conversation, fine dishes, and genteel laughter. Yet Isabel barely tasted the meal. Lucien's presence beside her seemed to heighten every sound, every breath. His hand brushed hers when reaching for a glass, and a strange warmth bloomed beneath her skin. She hated herself for wanting more. After dessert, she excused herself and escaped to the terrace for air. The night was cool, fragrant with jasmine. She thought she was alone, until Lucien joined her. "You left quite suddenly," he said quietly. "I needed space," Isabel murmured. He stepped beside her, leaning on the railing. "Isabel, about earlier, at the townhouse. I handled matters poorly." She stared at the moonlit gardens. "You handled them honestly." "That is precisely the problem," he said. She frowned. Lucien turned to her fully, expression stark. "I should not have mentioned Henry's request so soon. It made it appear as though I act purely from obligation, but that is not the truth." She swallowed. "Is it not?" "No. If anything, the vow binds me too tightly to speak the truth." Her pulse quickened. "What truth?" His voice lowered, raw and unguarded. "That I care for your well-being not because I must, but because I cannot help myself." She shook her head. "Please do not say such things merely to soothe me." "I do not soothe," he said roughly. "You should know that by now." She met his gaze and felt something in her chest unravel. Lucien stepped closer. "Isabel." But she retreated half a step, breath trembling. "No," she whispered. "I cannot bear being the object of a noble vow. I cannot give my heart to a man who may only feel compelled by guilt." Pain carved through his expression. "That is not—" "Please," she said again, voice breaking, "do not make this harder." She fled back inside, leaving Lucien Ravensby on the terrace, his confession hanging in the cold night air, unheard, unfinished, unforgivable. Chapter 3. Love Buried Beneath Duty. The days that followed were a careful, painful dance between avoidance and longing. Lucien made every attempt to give Isabel space. Forcing himself to keep his distance was agony, yet he refused to push her further. Meanwhile, Isabel lived in quiet turmoil. She could not deny the truth. She wanted him. She had wanted him for years, though she had hidden it even from herself. But she would not be a charity project wrapped in lace. To claim love that was not freely given would destroy her. Thus, the two remained entangled in unbearable silence. One morning, Lucian received a letter from the estate manager at Ashford Manor, a letter that chilled him. Mr. Harwood has been sighted again, loitering near the Moore cottage. It is suspected he believes Miss Moore will return alone. His intentions remain suspect. Lucian cursed. Harwood was a disgraced officer with a history of debt, manipulation and, most troubling, an unhealthy fixation on Isabel. Henry had long kept him at bay, but with Henry gone, Lucian's vow had never felt heavier. He strode directly to Isabel's room at Blackwood House. When she opened the door, still in her morning gown, he forced himself not to soften. "We need to speak," he said. Isabel stiffened. "I do not wish to argue again." "This is not an argument. It is a matter of your safety." He handed her the letter. She read it, paled, but her jaw set stubbornly. "He poses no real danger." "He poses every danger," Lucian snapped. "This is precisely why Henry—" "Do not hide behind Henry," she said sharply. "If you fear for me, say you fear for me. Do not invoke him to justify your dictates." Lucien clenched his teeth. "Very well. I fear for you, deeply." That silenced her, but she shook her head slowly. "I cannot stay locked away in London like a child. I need purpose, freedom, a future of my own choosing." "And I intend to help you achieve it," he said fiercely. "But not at the cost of your safety." She turned away, her shoulders tight. "Every time we speak, you treat me as though I am an obligation, a fragile thing to guard." She faced him again, pain shimmering in her eyes. "I am not your penance." Lucian felt the ground shift beneath him. "Isabel, you are the one thing in my life that is not my penance." She froze. He took a slow step forward. "You believe I act from duty. Yet duty would have led me to keep my distance, not pursue you like a drowning man grasping at breath." Her lips parted. "Lucien." "Henry's vow did not create my feelings," he said. "If anything, it forced me to face them." Her voice trembled. "Your feelings cannot be trusted, not when guilt pulls so hard." Frustration surged within him. "You think me ruled by guilt, but guilt does not make a man burn when he sees you smile. Guilt does not make him wake in the night wishing he were worthy of you. Guilt does not." He stopped himself. Barely. Isabel stared at him as though her heart were splitting. "I do not know what to believe." Before he could respond, Mrs. Warren arrived breathless, clutching an invitation. "Lord Ravensby, Miss Moore, you are both invited to Lady Everleigh's charity fete this afternoon." Lucien exhaled, reining in his emotions. "We will attend," Isabel blinked. "We. With your permission," he added softly. She hesitated, then nodded. Lady Everleigh's fete was held in a sprawling garden adorned with lanterns, crowds, and music. Isabel found herself drifting among the booths, sampling pastries, inspecting embroidery, chatting with acquaintances. It was a balm, momentary relief. Lucien maintained a discreet distance, until Harwood appeared. Isabel froze when she saw him. He was exactly as she remembered. Lean, charming in a dangerous way, eyes too sharp to be trusted. "Miss Moore." Harwood bowed with a smirk. "I had hoped we might speak privately." "I have nothing to say to you." He stepped closer, too close. "I think you do. You owe me." "Step away." Lucien's voice sliced through the air like a blade. He stood behind Harwood, expression cold enough to freeze the River Thames. Harwood scoffed, but a flicker of fear crossed his face. "This matter is between the lady and me," he said. "No," Lucien replied quietly. "It is between you and me." Isabel trembled. "Lucien." He moved subtly to shield her. "You will leave. Now. And you will not come near Miss Moore again." Harwood's facade cracked. "You think you can order me, Lucian stepped closer, his tone lethal. Try me. Harwood faltered, muttered a curse, and fled into the crowd. Lucian turned instantly to Isabel. Did he touch you? No. Relief flooded him so strongly he swayed, but Isabel's eyes shone with tears. You cannot keep saving me, she whispered. I cannot be the helpless sister of your fallen friend. You are not helpless, he said, but I will always represent your vow. No, he said fiercely, you represent the only part of my life I actually want. She gasped softly, but before she could respond, the crowd closed in around them, and the moment was lost, leaving the truth suspended between them like fragile glass. Chapter 4. A Vow, Rewritten by Love. 2 mornings later, Isabel rose early, unable to sleep. Confusion battled hope inside her, churning in ways she could no longer contain. She went to the garden, needing fresh air. Instead, she found Lucian there, standing alone, staring at the roses as though they held all the answers he sought. He turned when he sensed her. Their eyes locked. Isabel. His voice was raw. She swallowed. I need to know the truth. All of it. He exhaled, as though bracing for pain. Ask me. Did Henry force your hand? Did you swear out of guilt? Lucian stepped forward, gaze unflinching. Yes. The word struck her like a blow. But not in the way you think, he continued. I swore because Henry needed peace, and because I failed him once already. I could not fail him again. His jaw tightened, but feelings do not spring from vows, and they certainly do not obey them. Silence fell. Isabel, he said softly, I cared for you long before that night. I buried it because it terrified me, because you were Henry's sister, because I believed myself unworthy. I still do. Her breath hitched. But when he asked me to protect you, I realized I had been protecting myself instead, protecting myself from wanting you. Isabel's heart stilled. Lucian looked away, pain twisting through him. I understand if you cannot believe me, if you choose independence, if you choose a life far away from my clumsy attempts at honor. She moved closer. I do not want a life far from you. He stiffened. I wanted to be loved freely, she whispered. Not because I was assigned to you by the dying wish of a beloved friend. You are not assigned, he said hoarsely. You are everything. Her breath left her. Lucian reached into his coat. There is something I must show you. He withdrew a small velvet pouch. Inside was a delicate gold locket. It was Henry's final gift to you, Lucian said. He made me swear to deliver it when you were ready. Her fingers trembled as she opened it. Inside lay a tiny sketch, Isabel as a child perched on Henry's shoulders, both laughing, and beneath it, a folded note. Her brother's handwriting blurred through her tears. Isabel, little sister, if you are reading this, I have gone where I cannot protect you, but I leave you in the care of the one man I trust beyond myself, not because he owes me, but because I know his heart. He will love you even when he refuses to admit it. He will guard you even from himself. Let him, if you choose it. Henry. Isabel's knees went weak. Lucian caught her gently, worry flashing in his eyes. She looked up at him. My brother thought you loved me. Lucian swallowed. He saw what I would not allow myself to see. And do you? She whispered. Love me? Lucian's breath shook. He cupped her face with reverence, as if she were the most precious thing he had ever held. With every part of me, he said. Even the broken pieces. A tear escaped down her cheek. Then why did you not say so sooner? because love is a freedom I did not believe I deserved. And duty, she asked softly, does it still bind you? He shook his head. Duty brought us together. Love keeps me here. Isabel's heart finally eased. She leaned into him, feeling his forehead press to hers. I choose you, she whispered. Lucien's breath caught. And I choose a life not shaped by vows of the dying, she continued, but by promises we make to each other, freely. Lucien's eyes shone with something fierce and beautiful. Then let me make one now. He went down on one knee. Isabel's breath left her entirely. Isabel Moore, he said, voice steady though his heart raced. You deserve a life of courage, joy, and freedom, but if you would allow it, if you would allow me, I swear to build that life with you, not for Henry, not for duty, but because loving you is the truest thing I have ever known. He held out his hand. Will you marry me? Tears sparkled in her eyes like dew in the morning sun. Yes, she whispered, 1,000 times yes. Lucien rose, drawing her into his arms, and kissed her with a depth that shattered every wall they had built, every fear, every doubt, every chain. In that kiss, the vow was rewritten. It was no longer a burden. It was a beginning. Henry had bound them in duty. But love, quiet, fierce, and freely chosen, bound them forever. The end. If you've enjoyed this story of love, redemption, and quiet courage, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell, so you'll be the first to hear our next Regency romance on the Regency Gazette channel. Thank you for listening.